Hi, thank you very much for joining me today on John's podcast thingy. We're going to have a little chat about, well, who you are. You're going to tell us who you are. And I think the topics we're going to be talking about today are around like early stage startup marketing, which is close to my heart as well. We'll talk about that. And also being an introvert and trying to build an audience at the same time. So it'll be fascinating to get your insights on that. So to start with, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Hey, John, I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having me today. The topics are just fantastic. They're just right up my line. I really like talking about these things, and because I'm obviously an introvert, that's why I'm so passionate about the topic. And I also deal with lots of early stage startup founders as a marketer or as a mentor or as a consultant. I play different roles basically. So just a few words about me. I've been in business I've been building my own stuff basically for almost, 20 years. I just counted it recently while being on another podcast last week. It turned out to be it's 20 years old. I always used to say, 18, but no one is getting younger. Oh, well, and you know what? The funny thing is, I never thought about myself as a startup founder, though it turned out that most of things that I built, they were startups. They were not technical startups, but they were quite innovative concepts. So the first one that I was building like almost 20 years ago, it was a content marketing agency. Well, content marketing was a new thing, and very few people actually talk about it, and no one really knew how to do it. And we managed. I started the business. Basically, I didn't start it. I joined the team as a third co-founder, and we managed to build it quite big. In 3 years we became one in top 10 nationwide, and we were specializing on internal communications, like now people have these Slack channels to communicate with employees, and back then 20 years ago Slack didn't exist, and the only way like to build the connection between different departments or between people who were working not remotely but from different locations. For example, the company had offices like on the global level or in different states, and they had to build these connections between people so they could be on the same page about company vision or like product positioning, so launching new products, stuff like that. And so the only way to build these connections were like using traditional newspapers and magazines that were printing on the paper. Yeah, and that's exactly what we did. It was a fascinating time, and I learned a lot from my co-founders because they were quite good at what they were doing. They had Harvard Business Review background, and obviously they were quite good professionals in the field of content and creating like things that would be inspiring and shareable by other people, and something that actually people would love to read. But eventually, in like 4 years after that, I started feeling that web is going to be the next big thing and we should start moving in this direction. But my co-founders, they were much older than I was then. And, they were already in their comfort zone. The business was growing well. They didn't feel this need, this urge to change something because like everything was already amazing. They did not want to think of this idea like placing small bets for the future.
Yeah.
And especially hiring someone who would be better in this new web field than they were, because they obviously knew nothing about web. And so that's where our ways parted. And then I was invited to work in Cyprus in like business development field. That was my only experience in sales, basically B2B sales. I was invited as a head of sales to basically make a deal with the Cyprus government, where we sold a project that cost €6 million to be. It was a show business project that there was a big show to be staged in Cyprus. Then and yeah, I was so excited when we actually closed the deals. Though it took us 1.5 years.
Wow.
And yeah, it was supposed to be like a fast, like basically sidekick for me when I left the agency. And I was invited there, and they said, okay, you'll just work for 3 months and get some nice equity from that, or the cut from the sale. I was okay, no problem. I'm open to any opportunities. And it turned out to be a 1.5 year story. And that's how I just first landed in Cyprus, and how I got to know the country, and basically fell in love with it. After that, I was invited to work as an editor-in-chief for an industry-specific magazine on retail, and that's how I got fascinated by the retail industry. And eventually, like in a year, I decided, okay, I know enough about business to build my own stuff. And I just decided, because I was working with retail founders a lot, I decided to build my own retail chain and an online school. So like it was a combined project. The concept was very innovative. We were trying to bring the educational part and the point of sales part together. So every store that we launched, that we opened, it was like partly the point of sales with regular shelves, like the supermarket, but it was very aimed at. It was a chain of Asian grocery stores, so we were specializing in Thai and Indian and Chinese ingredients, and but half of the location was dedicated to actually learning process. So everyone who came in the store, they could just start cooking something that they didn't know how to cook, and being guided by the employees. We ran lots of tastings, we ran lots of cooking classes. So that was our way of like building the brand and the awareness. And we went very huge on educational part of the marketing. Eventually, I managed to grow the chain to 10 stores, and then the spin-off was just the online cooking school, because at some point we realized that we couldn't educate everyone who came into the store, who wanted to get the educational, because there were so many people who couldn't afford like getting there, or people who ordered online deliveries. They just didn't want to drive all the way to the stores. They actually were looking for online education. So that was made a spin-off and launched a cooking school. And well, yeah, it was pretty interesting as well. But because I was a solo founder at that time, obviously I had a big team. At some point we had 54 employees altogether. But because I was so, it was just draining, the whole experience, like being unable to delegate some very strategical decisions to someone. And because I'm an introvert, again, I was feeling very depressed by the necessity of dealing with something that I didn't like to do. Like 99% of my time, I ended up just managing people. And that was something that I was very horrible at. Yeah. And I'm ready to admit that I was a horrible leader. I micromanaged a lot. I just didn't like to delegate. I was a total control freak. That led me to basically managing people all the time, because I couldn't delegate this role to anyone else. And I couldn't find time to doing something that I really liked to do, like marketing, like finding new opportunities, trying to launch new products or new formats, or experimenting a lot. I just didn't have time for any of that. And I went through a horrible burnout. I ended up in a horrible depression when I could not basically move. I just slept for 24 hours. I lost 10% of my body weight. It was a very tough time for me and my family. And so I was basically pushed to close the whole project. I just closed locations that were not profitable, and in retail it happens a lot, unfortunately, that some stores they bring money, some stores they suck in money, and some and the rest of the business I just sold and moved my family to Cyprus because I knew it's a very quiet place here, and it's an amazing place to just relax and recharge your energy. And I was thinking like I would never work again, or maybe I had enough saved to last for several years. But obviously that's not what happened. A friend of mine here who runs a local accelerator, they reached out and they said, why don't you just talk to my cohort students? You are an experienced person in business, you can talk to them. I said, look, I don't know what to talk to with startup founders because I've never been in startup industry. And they were like, what are you talking about? You've been building like innovative startups or projects all your life. You obviously know how to talk to people about things that how to go through trials and errors, how to test the concept, stuff like that. And even you just can go and talk about content marketing if you want, because you know how to do these things. And that's how I ended up in startup industry. I started talking to the founders first locally here in the accelerator. Then I joined as a volunteer mentor the global program in the Founder Institute. And I now mentor a lot people from the Middle East and Eastern Europe, just because we're in the same time zone. And
Nice.
sometimes I consult and coach founders on one-on-one basis. Eventually, like starting from 2021, I also went to social media because I've never had this experience, trying to be engaging with people personally. When I grew the startup business, we managed our branded pages and we managed to grow communities around them. There were like about 10,000, maybe 12,000 on Facebook and 5,000 on Instagram. But it was like branded pages. It was not about me personally. And as an introvert, I just dreaded the idea of going to social media and trying to interact with people and talk to them, and maybe, because we always feel very vulnerable about being rejected, about like what people would say. But my whole story basically pushed me there, because at some point I realized if I don't go to social media and I don't start tweeting or posting on LinkedIn some things, I will be overwhelmed because I can't explain over and over again the same things to people I mentor, to the students from cohorts, and they ask all the same questions. They face all the same problems, and just wasting this time on mentoring sessions. I don't want to waste this time explaining the basics, right? How to do hypothesis validation, how to run customers interview, how to just any basic things. I wanted to, have some kind of reference link I could give to the founders, to my students, and say, look, go and read it there, and then come back to me, and we'll discuss your case specifically. What are you facing? How can we deal with it, with this like theoretical principles, and how can we apply it to your personal use case and help your startup grow? So that's really how I ended up on social media. Yeah, that's the story.
Yeah, it's amazing. What a story. I think just picking up on a couple of those points. I mean, going back a couple of decades before Slack, before Twitter, you were kind of working on, I suppose you would call that internal comms, internal communications,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And I think I started coding in my bedroom about 20 years ago as well. So I've been coding on and off ever since. And the world has changed so much. with hyper connectivity, right? With kind of social media and 3G, 4G, 5G everywhere, and it's kind of a new world, and we reflect on that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very true. But on the other hand, I would say that in terms of, communication and content and building connections between people, it's not so different.
Yeah, the fundamentals are the same, right?
Yes, exactly. And because, when I was running my retail business, I went very deep into behavioral science, trying to figure out what kind of, little tricks would bring me more customers. So the one way was to, launch location after location, or that could be a pretty risky strategy because it's not like online, right? You just failed the specific project with a specific domain name, and you just shut it down and move to a different story. It's not like that with retail. You have to invest a lot in terms of time and money, and you have to hire people, and you have to build the location, and you have to bring the new customers. Finally realizing that you were mistaken from the very beginning, that it's just not the right location for you. Like that, people who live in the vicinity, they don't need it, and it's very hard to create the demand if they just don't have this, the spark of curiosity in them. If you just got wrong with data analysis of the market research. So I started trying to figure out how can I get more from the existing locations. How can I get more revenue from my existing customers? And I read a lot of articles, a lot of studies and research on customer behavior, on just in general, this hidden brain things, how our subconscious basically prompts us into doing things that we don't even realize we are doing, how people make their decisions. And at that point, I realized it doesn't matter how far technology would go. It doesn't matter what dramatic changes we'll live through. The basics, this subconscious part of our brain that we basically don't have access to. We can't reason our way into the way we make decisions. We think that we know why we do that or that or this or that. But in practice, we don't really realize why we why we choose red over blue, or why we're more efficient on this part of the day, on why when we see this website in the morning, we're more inclined to make a purchase than when we see the very same website closer to lunchtime. So all this stuff are very basic. They're regulated by our basic nature as human beings, and it's not a flaw. It's not like a bug. It's a feature, right? And our the best way how we can deal with it is learn how to use it. So in terms of content, nothing has changed so dramatically. So the very same things that we used in our content market agency to make people want to read articles in the newspaper can be very well used now to get more audience on Twitter, or to make your content more shareable and grow your following on LinkedIn. So the principles are just the same.
Yeah, just different channels. Yeah, no, it's really interesting. A question on the the philosophy and the ethics of kind of behavioral marketing. I always find this fascinating. So, do you have a view? Have you heard of dark patterns?
Yes, I know that. I know that. I mean, even in UX design, there are dark patterns.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Where's the line? Where's the line between kind of the ethical line of kind of twisting people's behavior,
I
or
know.
kind of just
I know
using it?
what
It's a
you're
tough one,
talking
right?
about.
I find it
Right.
fascinating.
It's a tough one, but I think it was actually more complicated for me when I was using it in retail, because I mean, I basically wanted to get more, to make people purchase more from me than they were initially maybe inclined to do.
Yep.
So I had this strong concerns, and maybe because I still hesitating about the morality of the whole thing, it also added to my, you know, this stressful situation and my burning out eventually. In terms of when these kind of things are used in tech startup industry, in SaaS, for example, I don't see how it can be harmful to people if you have in mind the right intent. If you use all these little tweaks and changes to guide people to the right decision, right, to the decision that would be most beneficial for them and for you as a founder, like for instance how you craft your pricing tiers, how you represent them, how you think about your pricing. So obviously you can create a pricing that would be very confusing for people, like just a couple of weeks ago, maybe not last week, 2 weeks ago, I made this roasting of I helped one founder basically to put their pricing in a different way, because they had like 6 or 7 pricing tiers, and it was so confusing. Maybe people really wanted to buy their product, but they could not figure out what pricing they should go with. So that just the basic knowledge of the paradox of choice, how many options should we present, right? It would be very beneficial for the customers and for the founder as well. It's not like they're pushing people to buy something on their page. They're just making their decision so much easier. And it's the same principles like with the UX design. So it's not something like a rocket science. And all the principles that we have in the UX design, they're basically based on experimental, on the experiments results. We know that something is working and we should place it in this way, because like all other designers have been doing it for years, and we're just learning the best practices. But what is we just don't study the underlying layer, that all these results, these things are working because they're based on the behavioral marketing science. They're working because they're based on the way people are making their decisions. So that's one example how these things are used. I don't see that there is a big maybe they can be used. There's some founders can use it in a dark patterns way, in a dark way, all these patterns. But you know, basically everything can be. There is nothing wrong with the tool itself. It's the way how we are going to use it, right? Just any marketing practice can be used in a bad way. The way we write, just another example, because I'm a content person, something that's very understandable for me, like the way we write the titles and the first caption of the content or the story, right? The ways that we put this content on LinkedIn or in the article or in the newsletter. The first line that you're writing in your newsletter broadcast, it could be a clickbait, or it could be something that will prompt people to read it. So what's the difference? Both of these phrases that you would be using, they're aimed at making people actually go further and read the whole text. But the clickbait is something that you just that you're basically lying, right? You're not delivering on your promise. You're promising some amazing insight, revelation. So I always confuse this word. Revelation, that's right. I always forget how to spell it properly. So yes, you're promising something amazing to people, but you're not delivering it. They click on the article, or they go to read your newsletter or your Twitter thread, like 10 things that I learned as a founder, and then you're just you're just listing some very, very generic advice that people can read elsewhere, and it delivers low value, and it makes people more annoyed actually than grateful. So it's a
It
clickbait.
betrays their trust as well, doesn't it?
That's
Which
right.
in
That's
itself
right.
kind of solves the problem, because then the author has just
Absolutely.
undermined their own
Absolutely.
reputation. So.
But if you actually deliver, if you provide the value that they were looking for, if you actually give them these amazing insights, then it's a win-win. The person gets what they were looking for, and you get your followers, your readers, your whatever. So again, there is nothing wrong with the tool itself. Behavioral marketing can be used both ways. It's the intent, how are you going to use it?
Yeah, it's a really good point. I find it fascinating. Because I teach, so some of my students, we sometimes have this discussion when it comes to usability and user experience. A sort of classic book on user experience, written by Steve Krug, was "Don't Make Me Think." I don't know if you've come across that one. I remember that from my university days when I read it. Just remember the title. And the aim in good user experience design is to not make the user think more than they have to, right? But that in itself is a two-edged sword, because if you're trying to make it easy for them to do something that they shouldn't, you can use it, you can weaponize it, right? Or you just make their experience positive, and you don't overload their brain. So if you're why would you make them click 5 times if they can just click twice? And I guess that's the intent. I like Amazon as a classic example of, I guess they make it so easy for you to spend money now, which is fantastic, and it's convenient. But it works both ways, doesn't it? Because now you can almost spend money without realizing it, just with like a single click, single swipe. But it upsides and downsides, right? Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
fascinating area.
absolutely. So obviously, this kind of thing, they make Jeff Bezos even more happy than he probably could be. But on the other hand, it's really easy for the customer, because here I can relate to this, because we start talking about this morality of choice when we actually have access to all these tools. We are free to choose if we want to use them or not. But I'll give you an example. Here in Cyprus, we don't have like local Amazon marketplace. So all the deliveries from Amazon should be done from elsewhere, like UK. I personally use the US marketplace, because actually there is no difference in the delivery time when they deliver from the UK or when they deliver from the US. It's just the same. So the US is located on the other side of the globe, right? That's fascinating how they use it. I still don't know, but anyway, I mean, and there is no like online stores here at all. There is no culture of delivery, and if I want to get something delivered, like I don't know, like for instance groceries, the fastest delivery, there is only one store that delivers groceries and take online orders, and the fastest I can expect my delivery to get my delivery is in 72 hours. I can starve to death in that time.
Yeah.
And if I need something like the same day delivery, it's just non-existent here. And I mean, I would love to spend more money on Amazon if they just come here and let me just enjoy the high quality of the service. So yes, all the conversation about how moral it is usually starts when we have like open access to all these services, and we know that we can use that or this, and we start talking how actually useful can it be for the customer. But when customers don't have access to that, there is no discussion between customers. They want to get this access. They want to be made spending more money. So yes, it's very contextual. Actually, there is again, as every tech, especially, I started realizing it while being in around technical startups. for like 3 years now. I see these people in tech, they get fascinated with the tech itself. So it becomes very, very like an anchoring bias in their head. Like tech is because it's very powerful. It just delivers so many opportunities. It lets us achieve so many things that were not unachievable and were not even, that's something that we couldn't even imagine 5 or 10 years ago. And that's why founders start believing that it's all about tech. We have to build better tech, and then it comes down to let's build it and then they will come. So if we build a better tech, customers will
Famous
show up.
last words.
Yes, but it never happens, unfortunately. It's never about the perfect tech, though, to be honest, if the product really sucks, no amount of great marketing would save the game. So if you build something that does not solve anyone's problem, if you didn't do your homework and just research the market and talk to real people trying to analyze where the pain points are, no amount of money spent on Google ads or Facebook ads or like your personal audience on social media, it will not save the product. You might get some initial traction, but it will just end up on some level with a total failure. Just you'll start getting churn months after months, and you won't be able to grow fast enough to recover it with the new new customers.
Like pouring water into a leaky bucket, isn't it? It'll just, some might stick for a while, but it's gonna drain away, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an
and
interesting
that's actually one of the reasons why, I mean, I get these requests from founders, especially the ones whom I mentor, not from the accelerators, because the accelerators, they usually somehow vet or filter the founders, right? Just totally lousy products, they don't get into accelerators. But founders who reach out for mentorship one-on-one, I see so many, examples of products that are not solving anyone's problem. And they reach out and they ask, would you like taking my project and help me with getting more customers? Would you like to be our marketing consultant? And I just can't do it because I see there is no way of me, getting paid by these people, because even if I get them some first customers, they won't be able to scale up this product, because there is the mistake has been done in the very beginning. They don't understand who their customers are. They don't understand what problem they're solving. They're just trying to find, not the product market fit. They're trying to find the market product fit. They have a product and they try to find people who might be interested in this kind of stuff. And, it works sometimes when you have unlimited resources. You can run hundreds and thousands of experiments, and you might be lucky enough to land on some very specific niche and very specific group of people who actually need this. But especially if you are a bootstrap founder, it's almost impossible to find an audience to the already built product. And that's why I basically started, I created this free email course on how to find customers before you launch. That
awesome.
Teaches founders how to validate their hypothesis, how to create assumptions, all the basics from the product management, right? What everything that product managers do, and the basics of the customer development, and how to choose the audience that actually fits better based on your affinity with a specific group, with your existing connections, with your understanding of the specific audience, and then how to actually engage these people into the whole process of product creation, and eventually turn them into not just your beta customers, beta users, but into raving fans. Because if people get invested if they know that they have contributed, it's like, this IKEA effect. If people contribute, or also that's called Betty Crocker effect, when when you have this the cake mix and you don't have to add anything extra into it, the sales didn't actually grow faster. But if you actually have to invest extra effort and go buy some eggs to get into the mix, you start valuing the whole mixture more, and the sales start growing faster. And the same story with building the products. If you make people invest their time and effort, if they understand they have contributed to it in any role, in any way, not actually bought it, but actually contributed maybe in prioritizing features and understanding how this problem should be solved, or even putting the right words on your landing page, they still will be much more eager to spread the word about your product and recommend you to anyone they know.
Yeah, it's so powerful, isn't it? So that's why the kind of build in public kind of trend, right, particularly on Twitter, can be so powerful.
Yes, it's also exactly. It's also a very powerful tool, but it might take maybe much longer time, because if you start building in public and you have like 0 followers or 10 followers, it does not resonate a lot with the rest of the audience. And maybe these followers are not even people that would be benefiting from your product.
That's it. You've got to go where your audience is. That's certainly true.
Exactly. But otherwise, yes, I totally agree. It's a very powerful framework. It helps with understanding the audience better. It helps with building better products and obviously getting customers faster.
Yeah, nice. I like some of Arvid Kahl's work. How he's obviously been through the entrepreneurial cycle of building a business and selling it, and he's written a couple of books. And now I know he's kind of releasing lots of courses and like around sort of Twitter growth and things like that. But he does everything in public, and he pulls people in. And I think he wrote his last book, The Embedded Entrepreneur, in public. He was getting people to be kind of beta readers, and it kind of pulls people in, right? I also like that the concept of being an embedded entrepreneur is something that if you're embedded in the target market, or if you're kind of immersed or in the space and kind of are in the middle of all your potential customers, it's such a powerful way to be inside, open the door, or be inside the door before you even start the business. And that's something I particularly kind of enjoy.
Totally. But one thing I realized that some founders make this mistake by relying too much on the online data that they're gathering by being embedded in some specific communities, like people who have bigger audience on Twitter maybe, or who are very popular on Reddit, and they just think that they already know everything about people who follow them. They know everything about problems that they should be solving, and they don't make the next step, and they don't try to validate their assumptions, their hypotheses, by actually talking to real people. And it especially happens a lot with introverted founders who dread the whole idea of reaching out to someone and arranging these in-person conversations. It's so much easier just lurking and following someone online and trying to do this social listening, trying to get quantitative data from Reddit groups or LinkedIn posts, how people, in what context people mention this or that, and try to do emotion analysis or semantic analysis. And they think it will work great, but it will on the next stage when the idea is already validated. Then when the product is built and you already have customers, you can do all this as much social listening as you want to analyze which way should you move your product further to capture the trends, how people start changing their opinion about some specific niches or areas. but it's not enough. This online listening is not enough to validate. I learned it the hard way when I was invited like 2 years ago, I was invited as a marketing consultant. And they had really small budget, to tell you the truth. Like, how they say, what's your marketing budget? You are our marketing budget. So we were hoping you'll do everything and we'll just pay you, and that's it. So I was invited as a consultant, and they had very limited resources. And we decided that we'll go ahead with just social listening and try to figure out, do some sentiment analysis. And the trick is that social media platforms are very biased in terms of sentiments. People come there to release their stress. They come there just to over exaggerate their problems.
It's a messy place.
Yeah, just to get some advice. Because if you say very politely, I'm a little bit concerned about this or that, people would not react in a very active way. But if you put, wow, it's a catastrophe, I'm just going through the worst period in my life, this kind of posts have much more chances to get someone's attention, and you will actually get some actionable advice. Or people should just go there to rave and rant and just to release that stress they're going through. But if you start talking to them, actually start trying to figure out how important these problems are in their life, how often do they happen, and what kind of steps have they already taken to solve this problem, you realize suddenly that it's not important, it's not urgent, it happens like once a year, and it's not so painful that they have tried to find a solution aside from going to social media and complaining about it. So yes, you can build a product for them, but you're very unlikely to get paying customers.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, that you can't trust what people say on social media, but
Absolutely,
the line is you've got to talk to people. You've got to talk to people.
there is no way around it.
Yeah. So you mentioned your free email course, which is sounds really interesting. I need to sign up to it. If I haven't, I don't think I already have, so I need to do that. Can you, before we finish up, can you share one kind of valuable tip or insight that's maybe from that email course to kind of whet people's appetite? What kind of pearl of wisdom can you share for early stage founders? I'll put you on the spot now.
Okay. All right. So, what I usually suggest to do, right? Again, it's the classics, but I saw so many founders that just skip this step and they just don't try to think about it at all. So, what I usually suggest to do, as soon as you get the idea, like I'm going to build this or that, just write a list of 5 assumptions that you have that led you to this idea. Because when we have a business idea, we always base the whole story of the assumptions we have about people who are going to use it, about problems that people are facing, about people's ability to pay. So just list 5 assumptions about this business idea. Why did you even come up with this business idea in the first place? So these assumptions should be dealing with like the activity relevant to the problem. For example, I don't know, just for example, I believe people who have a dog and they have concern about losing it, right? So this is the activity, your assumption about activity, like people who have a dog, who have concerns about, people are having concerns about losing a dog. And the problem you are solving, basically, you're going to solve these people's problem with your tool or service or whatever. Or like people who have children have concerns about finding a babysitter in a very, very limited time slot, in a very short time. So just list your assumption about the activity and the problem. Then the next assumption should deal with customers' ability to pay and why do you believe so? Like, for example, getting back to my example with the dog owners, like I believe that dog owners who have concerns about losing their pet would be willing to pay about at least $20 a month for the tool that I will be offering them to solve their problem, because they already eager to pay 500 as a reward for any information about the lost pet, right? If a person is already eager to pay 500, they most probably will be willing to pay like 10 times less for solving their problem. The third assumption should be about alternatives that people you will be targeting or aiming your product at might be using right now. The fourth one about the customer journey, I believe that people who have concerns about about losing their pet, they ask the local vet clinic about the options that they have about like preventing the whole thing happening. How what journey do customers have right now, not in future, not like in the past, but right now, and how they solve their problems right now. And obviously about the customer's level of awareness about this problem. And it's okay if you won't be able to fill in some of the assumptions. And if you don't have these assumptions, if you are unable to form them, it probably means that you don't know enough about the market, about the customers, and about their problems. And it's a very bad idea to start building something if you don't have these assumptions, if you don't have enough knowledge about the market you're going to target. It means first you have to study the market you're going to build your solution for and create these assumptions, and then try to test them and prove them wrong or right, running customer interviews and collecting data online. But it all begins with the assumptions, basically.
Yeah, I like that. It's important to state our assumptions. Getting them down on paper helps us make sure we don't have any blind spots or reduce the number of blind spots, right? And then we need to validate them, right? We need to
Yes,
validate
exactly.
our
And it
assumptions.
makes, many founders that I know, they have so many business ideas, like I want to build this and that and this and that, and they can choose which one to go with the first in the first place. So creating these assumptions even helps to understand which product has more chances to get customers, because you know this market better, you know these customers better. Because if you can list all the assumptions out of 5, it means that you're really deep into understanding customers' problem, or at least you have some kind of idea about them. And if you don't have any idea, if you can't list your assumptions, it means you're probably not informed enough to even start solving their problems, because you don't know anything basically about real problems that people have.
Yeah, and you need to start learning. So fantastic advice. Thank you, Anna. Really appreciated that. So just to give a shout out to your website, I think, is it anaspiringfounder.com is where to find you online?
That's right. That's correct. That's my website. You can find my free email course there. Also, I try to run the Hidden Brain Marketing newsletter, where I basically share all the things that we were talking about. This like dark or light patterns that we can be using depending on our goal and on our initial intention. And obviously you can follow me on social media. I'm very active on Twitter and on LinkedIn. Just type in Ana Bibikova.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Anna, for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully we'll have to do this again.
The pleasure was all mine. Thank you so much for having me today. Thank you.